there's something wrong with people, but there's nothing wrong with the generation. And I just so object to the whole idea that all millennials are terrible. 80 million people cannot be entitled, and it's just terrible. So what I found out was that the things that were motivating boomers and Gen Xers are not the things that necessarily motivate millennials.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into CrushTheStreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri. We're going to have a motivational, educational discussion today. And we're going to be talking, in part, how to manage employees, how to manage specifically millennials in some cases here. I'm a millennial, and I brought an expert on the line. Her name is Caraher, and she's the author of Boomerang Principle. Inspire lifetime loyalty from your employees. So we're just going to explore these topics here today. Lee, thanks for coming on the line with me today.
It's so great to be with you. What an honor.
Well, I am fascinated by what your expertise is, and let's start off with how you were inspired to write a book. This book, The Boomerang Principle.
Well, this book is my second book. The first book was Millennials in Management, The Essential Guide to Making It Work at Work, which I wrote after failing miserably at retaining millennials. I was awesome at recruiting them. I was terrible at retaining them. And which was a new thing for me because I am a boomer. I'm the last year of boomer. And before I started hiring millennials, I was known for being awesome at hiring and great retention rates. And I had very large organizations, mostly with people under 30. And when I started hiring people under 30 in 2011, I failed miserably, 100% failure rate. Never had that in my career. And
okay, so what's so different about these people? I'm a millennial myself. What is so different about us? I've heard that there's something off in our brains, or we're not the same as our previous generation. So what is the reasoning behind this?
So here's the deal, right? First of all, there's nothing wrong with millennials. There's something wrong with people, but there's nothing wrong with the generation. And I just so object to the whole idea that all millennials are terrible. 80 million people cannot be entitled, and it's just terrible. So what I found out was that the things that were motivating boomers and Gen Xers are not the things that necessarily motivate millennials. And when you can create an environment where millennials thrive, boomers and Xers also thrive. But the reverse is not true. And I'll give you some examples. Millennials have grown. So millennials this year are between the ages of 16 and 36. They were born between 1980 and 2000. And most millennials grew up with a phone in their hands that had more power than landed on the moon, right? And they've had a very flat world, a lot of access to a lot of stuff, one click away, one email away, one tweet away, one post away. And number one. Number two, the world is flat then. Right? Because there's no hierarchy, there's not a lot of things that get in your way of getting at least the access that you want to people and to information, or at least the impression of that. Boomers and Gen Xers grew up in a hierarchical world where, you'll need to know and you need to know, and just do it because I said so, and all that kind of stuff. That was, the boomers, almost the same size of generation that millennials are, were the wait my turn generation. We just waited our turn and we would move up the chain. Millennials, flat world, no hierarchy. And so you go, millennials where hierarchy is antithetical to their situation, go into hierarchical organizations run by older people. There's going to be a clash. So that is what I found out. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just an is thing. And then when you peel the onion on what matters, the things that millennials care about are the same things that Gen Xers and boomers care about. We just talk about it differently. So when I went back from my first book, my intention was not to write the book. My intention was to fix my company. And then after we interviewed a lot of people, we read a lot of stuff, we put together, we trial and error, and put together this culture that keeps people within the company for a much longer time than they expected. And that works for millennials, boomers, and Gen Xers. And then someone asked me to write the book because they kept asking. In my business is a public relations and digital marketing firm, communications firm. And my clients, and for my work and my strategy work, were asking me more and more about millennial consumers and millennial employees. And so someone finally just said, Lee, we just write the book for the love of God. Just write the book and help people.
Wow.
So I did. This book is sort of the continuation of that. It's sort of the idea that millennials believe, rightly so, that they will have 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 careers within their whole career. And they have a reputation of being job hoppers. Well, I don't think this is, I think it's BS. But they do think, they've been told, they saw their parents, 10 million boomers lost their jobs in 2010, and it's taken a long time for those people to get jobs back to commensurate where they thought they were going to be, and many millions of people do not have those jobs. And so they've told their children, who are now between the ages of 16 and 36, don't stay too long. Don't count on a company to carry you. You need to take control of your own career. Don't get stale, that kind of thing. So they've been told by their parents and by the education system and the economy that they need to craft their own careers. So if they don't get what they need or what they think they need out of their environment, they move on. Well, there's lots of ways we can acknowledge that and then find ways to keep people in the company longer and not worry about them leaving, and help them be loyal to us, not just when we pay them, but for their entire careers. And that is where the relationship between an employee and an employer can be so beneficial to both parties.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you're talking about this economy now, and we know that some have compared it to, the worst recession that we've seen since the Great Depression, and the environment that, these 18-year-olds are going into. I mean, we're seeing a situation now where colleges at prices that are most unaffordable than ever.
Yeah.
And people are very dealing with a very discouraging situation. Although, you know what? I've read some statistics that millennials are some of the most optimistic than any other generation. They're very optimistic about what is ahead of them than as opposed to some of the other generations who I guess have had some more time to get beaten down by life. So
millennials are very optimistic about their ability to change the world. And I think boomers and Xers are not confident in their ability to change the world. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which might be another podcast. I don't know, Kenneth, but we'll figure it out.
Well, it's really interesting. Let's talk about some of those principles. I think there are going to be some that transcends just generations of only millennials. What is the culture? What is the environment that you promote to enhance a working environment?
So the Boomerang Principle is that those organizations that allow and encourage former employees to return have a strategic advantage over those that don't. And the reason they have a strategic advantage is that, one, places that are good to return to are hard to leave, right? So you have people who stay longer when you employ this principle in your business. They stay longer. The Boomerang Principle counts on people being loyal, and the most loyal act an employee can do is actually leave if they're not motivated by the opportunity that your company affords them. And truly, the most loyal thing you can do is leave when you're not motivated.
Wow.
And you've done everything you can to be motivated, and the company has tried to do something, but, I want to be a nurse, and you're not a hospital. I mean, whatever it is, right?
Sure.
And then the not worrying about when, because, here's the deal. You hire someone, they're leaving because they came from somewhere and they're going somewhere else. They're going to leave you. So just don't worry about that. What you should worry about is creating an environment that is as positive and productive as possible so that the people who are there, who are there are actually making your business happen. One person said to me, well, what if, I'm not going to put all my effort into, training these young people because they're all going to leave. I said, well, what if they don't? Then you've got a mediocre company that you haven't trained anybody to do the work. So all you're doing is, creating less opportunity and less productivity and less profit. And therefore, why would you want to come there? When you have that attitude, how are you going to recruit the best talent?
Sure.
So, it's just impossible. So it's a very messy thing, right? The truth is that people do not fit into nice little boxes and grades and, levels and all that kind of stuff. And a career trajectory today is not up a ladder. It's sort of climbing left to right, going down, going up, going over here, changing jobs entirely. And that is today's reality. So how does a company today match up with the people who are anticipating have 2 or 3 different career changes in their lives and anticipating and knowing that they don't, it may not be true, but they know that they can't get stale, that they have to stay fresh. Well, what a company does is worry about, are you attracting the right people through your vision and your values? So what is your company here to do? What positive changes are going to make in the world if it does its job? And what are the values, meaning what are the behaviors that your company allows that line up with that vision? Companies who have visions and values are the companies that millennials are very attracted to because they understand why am I getting up every day? Why am I logging on every day? And this generation, unlike the previous generations today that are in the workplace, are very motivated by how they are going to make a difference in the world. So your company better know what the hell it's trying to do. Right?
Sure.
The second piece is appreciation. Being in a culture of appreciation, saying thank you and please makes a tremendous amount of difference. Those teams that feel appreciated outperform those that don't up to 30%, right to the bottom line. So it is a business decision to be a good place to be. I could go on.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you were done there. Lee, I was wondering this while you were talking. I was wondering how much in your research would you say that pay is a factor in people staying where they're at? And I know, the ideal thing to say might be, oh, well, it's not a big deal, or if they're, I don't want to hear that you're going to say it's just about the environment or just about, I want to know how much, is it a big deal for someone to be fairly compensated or even overcompensated? And does that have a significant impact on their performance? Or is it mostly about everything else, the appreciation or,
I think, no, I'm not going to say that because it's wrong. It's false. In my experience, appreciation also means compensation. Appreciation means things beyond please and thank you and getting a promotion. It also means, it can mean lots of things, but it has to mean compensation that I feel that I'm fairly compensated. For women and men, women need to feel that most women need to feel that they are paid equal to their male counterparts, and we know that that is not universal yet. In my company it is, because I'm the CEO and I know what people get paid and I don't make a difference there.
Hey, my company too, women and men make the same.
Yeah, so that is, that is important. So, but there are many currencies. There are many currencies in business and in life. So in my company, how we think about the currencies are compensation. And against the competition, we never pay the top dollar. We don't pay the top dollar because that's not our model. Our model is sort of the middle between the top and the middle. So high average, above average, way above average, but not the highest. Sure. Because we offer, our people don't have as much target on utilization, meaning they don't have to bring in as many hours in, and that is part of our model to keep people in the company longer, which in long term is a model for profit. The other piece is that we work with companies that another currency is doing work you like to do, right? Working on companies you like to work with and people you like to work with and people you like to work with. So that's a currency as well. And another currency is freedom or flexibility. So can I come in late if I have to? Can I go to the ballet class? Can I go for my child? Can I go to the yoga class at 5 o'clock? And those four currencies plus the appreciation for the work that you're doing is how in my culture at Double Forte is how we put it together, so that the whole compensation is all those things, right? There's a lot of other little, we pay for Clipper. In San Francisco, it's the Clipper card for the BARTS system, the train system. And we pay for sneakers so people can go on a walk and talk. And we pay for, gym memberships and all that kind of stuff. Anything you can put before taxes is a good idea, right?
Sure.
It's not a good idea. That may not be a good idea for the company because it increases overhead, but it's a great idea for the employees. And so how you think about the total compensation is different than just pay. Sure. In the beginning of someone's career, if you start at the bottom and, you're making 12, 9, whatever it is. I mean, in San Francisco, it's $15 an hour is the city lowest thing. So it's higher than anywhere else in the country, right? But just say it's $47.5 for knowledge workers. Well, $47.5 in San Francisco, New York, Boston, Minneapolis, Texas, in Houston, this $47.5 doesn't go very far, right? So having a philosophy around getting people to $70,000 as fast as you can is a strategy I think pays off really well. Because, when you go from company to company, you can expect 20% raises, right? But in a company, if you only have a 3 to 5% raises, it's going to take you forever to go from 47.5 to 70.
Yeah.
But if you have a scaling increase baked in between 47.5 and 70, then you can get someone to 70 pretty quickly. And that is sort of the number. In the knowledge worker land, that is sort of the number that where people feel, okay, I'm moving along here now. Sure. But if you're only doing 3% from 47 up to 70, you're going to be 37 years old before you get there if you're 24,
Right.
I probably did the math wrong on that, but so you have to have, my belief is you have to have an inverted cost of living increase baked into your model to keep the younger people, the people who are starting their careers in your company long enough to be more valuable to you. In my company, we charge by the hour, right? And every person has a billing rate. So I am highly incented to take somebody and make them more valuable to me, right?
Right.
Move them from a $100 person to $150, move them from $150 to a $200 person. I'm highly incented. It only comes along if people get the experience and get the training, because clients do not want to pay $150 for a $100 body. So the clients keep us honest on that in terms of creating the training environment and the experience environment that gets people up the chain faster at a higher compensation rate. So it's very messy. I wish it wasn't so messy.
No. I want to ask you about another component then. Yeah. And that is the value of someone being a part of something that's thriving versus an environment that's failing. Some of these retail stores or, local to my house, we had Sport Chalet go under not that long ago. And, being in that environment and, hearing your bosses complain and hearing your employees worry. This is a stressful environment, but then the flip side is when you're around a thriving environment. How important is this? I
don't think there's anything more important than motivation and what gets you out of your bed and logging on or coming to work every day. And if you feel like where you're going doesn't have a future, well, what is more demoralizing than that?
Sure.
Because you're not, you just know that no matter if you have a feeling that no matter how hard you work, your company's not going to make it, but there's nowhere else to go. Gosh, that's happening around the country in legacy businesses, right? And it's relatively political to talk about right now, but if we could talk about the coal industry, we could talk about the car industry, we could talk about all these different industries that are really have seen their time. Unfortunately, the people who were in them did not get the opportunity to gain other skills, and sort of the same thing you're saying, right? And gosh, how depressing. So it is vital to be in a place and to feel that you are relevant to the economy. Everybody has to feel, business has to be relevant to the economy. My job, my business, we contract with other companies to do their work for them. If we are not relevant, we do not get work. If I don't get work, I don't have people. If I don't have people, I don't get paid. It's pretty simple.
Sure.
But individuals, in the land of personal branding, individuals need to make sure they are as relevant as possible. So if you're in that kind of situation, like you're working for a company that you just don't have confidence in, and you're surrounded by negativity, but you have to pay the bills. So yeah, you go to work every day, but then you figure out, what am I going to do to get out of the situation? What am I going to do to have more options? And there's lots of things you can do today to make yourself more relevant. You can learn how to code. There's Codecademy, there's Udacity, where you can actually get, really well-credentialed certificate programs on how to code. There's places you can go learn how to be WordPress. You could start your own online company. But if you're not relevant, you got to take control of that yourself.
Sure.
And you can do that no matter where you are. It is more personal responsibility on the millennial generation than there has been in prior generations, because the implied contract between employer and employee and the concept of like staying until you get your golden watch has been totally broken, right? And this is where millennials get a bad rap, not because of millennials, but because of older people who are upset with their own situations. That's my belief.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and technology is taking over. I mean, we're rapidly changing where now robots are doing the jobs that people used to do. I mean, we have driverless cars. I think about truck drivers who, get great pay. I mean, we're going to have driverless trucks that run 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? And this is...
But we know that there are not enough truck drivers in this country to actually move things around. There's a large gap between how many truck drivers we have and how many truck drivers we need. So this driverless truck thing, that's filling a need. It's not like
sure.
It's filling a huge need. Unfortunately, right, if you're counting on, there's sort of a couple of things to think about there. If you're counting on being a truck driver, a cross-country truck driver, well, get a new plan. If you're planning on being a plumber, raise your rates. There are not enough people doing trades. There's not enough people working on laying fiber. There's not enough people working on telephone poles. Truly, in California, the people for PG&E, people working the poles, those people start at something like $130,000 a year. Well, because there are not enough of them. So it's sort of like a dual strategy on, if you're in a trade, we all need plumbers, we all need wires. There's a lot of opportunity in trade.
Sure.
There is tons of opportunity in technology, but it's going to change rapidly. And don't get too comfortable. The people who were doing sequential programming just 5 years ago, they're all worried about their jobs because everyone's on a sprint basis, an agile networking basis.
Sure.
So you always have to make sure that you're relevant and not get too comfy, which is, it's a little tiring to think about. At the same time, if you're a constant learner, that's where opportunity is going to happen, is if you're constantly learning and constantly checking things out, because people who are constant learners are the people that great companies want to hire.
Well, hey, that's some great closing words of advice there. Lee, if people want to purchase your books, either one of them, let people know where they can find that, and a little more maybe about what they can expect to gain from reading them.
Sure. Both my books are written very pragmatically. It's not a lot of fluff. Sort of the first part is sort of why are we in the situation we are, and where there's disappointment, and why do we have different expectations than what the future will be. The second part of my book is sort of step by step, how do you do it? How do you go from being a place where, for the Boomerang Principle, how do you go from being a place where it says, if you leave me, you're dead to me, to being a place that says, if you leave me, I hope you come back. And I give really easy, very pragmatic, easy to read, lots of stories so people can see themselves in it, step-by-step guides. You can find both of my books, at all places where books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, IndieBound, all those kind of places. And on my website, www.leecaraher.com, LeeCaraher.com. You can get to my agency, Double Forte. You can find my books. You can find how to book me as a speaker. I do lots of workshops for big and small teams around these topics. Or you can read my blog, and I blog on these topics all the time. And I welcome everybody's feedback because I just get better when I get more feedback.
Well, Lee, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your knowledge with us today. Thanks for coming on the line with me today.
It's been such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much, Kenneth.